For a long time, I didn't know what to say at the beginning. In the last couple of years, a ton of reviews have come out for the 7th generation console, but it seems to me that most of the authors of these videos bought the consoles, just for these videos. I, on the other hand, bought the PS3 to actually play on it. And it truly managed to rekindle my interest in games. And it will most likely do the same for you. In this video, I will tell you how and why I bought my console, what I will be playing on it, and for the 100th time, compare the PlayStation with the Xbox, focusing on the less obvious details. And for those who want to buy a console, I will explain how to distinguish an original DualShock from a fake. Plus, I'll show you how to properly connect other gamepads. Today, I will try to figure out what is so special about this console. Do you remember how 12 years ago everyone awaited GTA 6 and GTA 5? Some played on Xbox, some on PlayStation 3, and some on YouTube, like me. It was around that time that I got a bit more acquainted with consoles, and being someone who spent hours playing GTA San Andreas, entering cheats from a piece of paper, I fell in love with GTA 5 from the first trailer. But I couldn't play it, so I continued to get acquainted with games on YouTube. That's how I stumbled upon The Last of Us, and after watching the playthrough, I just couldn't get it out of my head. Impressed, I started looking for other Naughty Dog games and discovered Uncharted, which also captivated me. But the problem was that I couldn't afford a console at the time, and I could only dream about these games. In 2016, I finally played GTA through streaming, but I never completed the story. Damn! Even after buying a PC, I only completed a couple of games, but I didn't get the same emotions that consoles gave me. After my dad gave me a PS4, I was able to play everything I had dreamed of, and even more. But I still wanted to buy a PS3 for my collection to fulfill a childhood dream. So this idea had been in my head for a long time. And in the year 22, when many nostalgic reviews came out, the desire became even stronger. In the end, my friend Ruslan gave me the console as a gift, for which I am very grateful to him. The console was bought in Germany by another friend, Damir. By the way, he also has a video about the PlayStation 3. I recommend watching it. The console was in good condition, and it even had a Samsung SSD inside. However, the original gamepad was not included, so I had to look for it in Ukraine. I consciously chose the slim version, introduced in 2009, despite the existence of the Super Slim, which came out a couple of years later. It is of course lighter and more compact, but is it really that good? There are nuances here. And before I say anything, let me clarify that I fully understand that the PC platform gives you complete control over the graphics in games. But for me, this became a problem. I find it simply difficult to immerse myself in the gameplay. At the very least, I have to fully adjust the game to my hardware once. The desire to play fades when, instead of playing games, I try to maximize the graphics. I think this is familiar to many. Meanwhile, when playing on the PlayStation, I don't encounter such difficulties. All I need to do is turn on the console, open the game, and then I can start playing it. I can't influence the graphics, and these limitations become freedom for me. And it's important to note that I play single-player games on the TV. Even budget models provide deep blacks and a good viewing angle. Moreover, 4K TVs have long been available, unlike affordable 4K monitors, which most often have a standard IPS that looks like this. The second important factor is that on the TV, I perceive the picture as a whole. I don't get caught up on graphical flaws, and even in 720p, games look good to me. Also, it's healthier because I'm already sitting all the time when I work. Well, you might say, what's stopping you from playing on the TV from the computer? Well, in reality, that's a separate quest. And just to play on a PC through the TV, you have to connect and set something up every time, unlike a console where none of that is necessary. And it's worth mentioning that the PS3 still has surprises to offer. For example, exclusives that haven't been released on other platforms. Of course, you can play through an emulator, but that's a completely different experience, and emulation is demanding. Moreover, on any PS3, many PS2 games are available, and you can run all PS1 games if you love retro. Plus, any PlayStation can be modded for a long time now, which opens access to even the rarest games. Now, what personally appeals to me about this console is the availability of games with Russian localization. For example, I replayed Life is Strange and want to play many other games. What surprised me, however, is the lack of a sleep mode, and in our time, this seems strange, as well as the fact that there's no way to take a screenshot without custom firmware. Now, a little about the gaming experience. After picking up the PS3 from the post office, the first thing I did was launch GTA 5. And yes, the game still looks great, but not in a technical sense. It's quite outdated in that regard. But when I play this game on the console, I feel like a school kid again. Despite all its flaws, the game looks as authentic as possible to me, and no matter how hard Rockstar tries, even adding ray tracing to the game can't evoke the emotions in me that the original does. I haven't felt the urge to play through it again in this form yet, but who knows. I also tried out The Last of Us, and it is very impressive as well. Yes, the game still looks great, although personally, I recommend playing the remake on the PS5. In any case, it was very interesting to take a look at this particular version, and the awkward dubbing only added to the originality of the experience. But the first game I completed from start to finish was the 2013 Tomb Raider. And most surprisingly, I really liked it. And it's surprising, Because I'm a fan of story-driven games, and in Lara the plot is so bad that I should have abandoned it right away. I tried to play at least 40 minutes every day and there wasn't a time when I didn't want to turn on the console. I realized one thing for myself. I was wrong to dismiss Lara for so long. I will probably enjoy playing the second part now. And maybe this sounds ordinary to you, but I rarely give new games a chance. Lara, which at first glance seemed like a complete red flag, hooked me with its gameplay and spirit of adventure. Even the presence of useless upgrades added its own charm. With the PS3, for the first time in a long while, I felt such a strong desire to play something new, and the compromised graphics were not an obstacle. I was simply playing the game, not thinking about its shortcomings. And this is exactly what made me look at the PlayStation 3 in a new light. Because it has something that modern consoles have lost, but more on that later. I also played a bit of Lollipop Chainsaw, a game produced by James Gunn, and now I want to finish it. And on a PC, I probably wouldn't even launch something like that. And that's a shame. It has an auteur style and the spirit of a developing industry, which is lacking now. Now, in addition to other major games, I want to complete many platformers that I have been putting off for various reasons. And who knows what this will lead to. And just 2 completed titles have taught me a lot. Firstly, I am now open to new experiences. And secondly, old graphics do not hinder enjoyment. And piracy on consoles feels completely different than on a PC. Before purchasing this console, I had a serious problem. Despite my love for games, I lost interest in them. Attempts to try new games on PC constantly fail, and due to regional restrictions, my old PlayStation account turned out to be almost useless. And this only further diminishes the desire to play. And besides what was previously mentioned, there is another paradoxical problem. I like graphics in games. I see the difference between a PC and a console. I see that the PS5 is now not just a stripped-down PC like the PS4, but also a lagging tech. And it seems to me that developers have simply stopped putting all their efforts into impressing me with console graphics. Because when I bought the 4th PlayStation, I was shocked by the graphics it produced in exclusives. And it was impossible to remain indifferent when a $300 console that fits under the TV delivered such magnificent visuals. And this was although its processor was considered outdated when released. The 5th PlayStation made a smaller leap in graphics. It offers the same experience, differing in details, yet the gap with PC versions of games has widened. This is the paradox. I much prefer playing on consoles, yet I am drawn to the graphics that only a PC can offer. As a result, I just don't play. On the PlayStation 3, you forgive any graphics and just want to give games a chance, regardless of the existence of better versions. And that is perhaps the best thing about this console. In the eternal pursuit of the best gaming experience, I began to lose the desire to play itself. Now I can just relax and start enjoying it. Sometimes I regret that I couldn't buy such a console 10 years ago, because then it would have had an even greater impact on me. But the past is in the past and the PS3 is still here. This console allowed me to be a child again, even if just for a little while, to lower my expectations and start playing. Behind this ancient piece of hardware lies a pure gaming experience, so imperfect, strange, and angular, yet so familiar to many gamers. Let's talk about it now, because it doesn't start with a launched game, but with the console itself. The PlayStation 3 Slim is a benchmark example of industrial design. Matte plastic, smooth lines, simple texture, and minimal glossy accents make it almost perfect. The Super Slim, despite having a more advanced manufacturing process, is louder due to a smaller heatsink, and the build quality leaves much to be desired. To reduce the cost of the console, Sony even abandoned the automatic disc loader, replacing it with a manual mechanism. With the reduction, the curling iron lost not only 1 kilogram of weight but also a significant part of its charisma, making it a compromise and, in a bad sense, a pragmatic solution, which is why the Super Slim feels like a remaster of a 2-year-old game. Therefore, the choice was obvious for me. Despite the fact that in 2025 the Slim version turns 16 years old, it still looks stylish and compact, even next to the PS4 Slim, which is a benchmark for me. And there is even a sense of continuity in the design philosophy between them, adjusted for the time of release. The PS4 looks more restrained and rectangular. Curves are used only to give the design smoothness. The PS3, on the other hand, already looks smooth and streamlined. That's why the corners here are sharper. Its design reminds me of MacBooks before the year 2021, when Apple used rounded shapes to make the device visually less bulky and more elegant. And now it's hard to believe that this is a design from 2009. After all, computers at that time were either boring office coffins or they tried to be too gamer-like and aggressive. The PS3 combined minimalism and modern style, which allows it to look relevant to this day. Unlike the refined design of the PS3, the PS5 went in a completely different direction. Its main problem is that, according to Jim Ryan, I quote, "The company tried to turn the home console into a piece of decor." And they succeeded. Turning the console into a vase was incredibly bold. Despite its tech features, it was inconvenient to move and the black glossy plastic gets scratched. It's now easy to clean the slim version from dust. You'll be looking at the console less often than at its interface, known as XMB. Originally created for the PSP, it was adapted for the PS3 with extended functionality and later even for Sony Bravia TVs. This affected its appearance and functionality. The main menu is a horizontal list with various media functions, emphasizing the multimedia nature of the console. Games are launched from a vertical submenu. The interface still looks modern today, although there are many settings that most people don't need. In this regard, the PS4 made a big leap forward by putting games at the forefront. Enlarged icons help users focus on games. Less important settings are placed in a separate window. Settings have become more convenient, the gaming experience doesn't change because of this. However, launching becomes much more convenient. The main thing is that in 2025 it stays relevant. And if you liked my theme from the East, you can download it from my Telegram channel. Link in the description. But if anyone has issues with relevance, it's the hardware of the console. I don't want to bring up the development history again, but I'll remind you that initially, Sony hoped to handle all the graphics with their super processor cell, which they completely messed up, eventually attaching the RSX GPU to the console, and it is 20% slower than the Xbox's graphics. Well, purely in theory. However, texturing on the PS3 is faster, and so is the memory bandwidth. But here, it's more about the difference in approaches. On the PS3, memory is divided between the CPU and GPU, making the memory faster on the console. But on the Xbox, developers could allocate memory more flexibly, reflecting the entire handling of each console. The Xbox was simpler with its unified architecture, while the PlayStation was faster in some aspects but required more precise work with resource allocation. And developers didn't immediately understand the intricacies of its operation. So if you suddenly want to buy a cheap console for multi-platform games from those years, take a look at the Xbox. Games generally run better there, especially the early ones. By the way, let's talk about them. The Tomb Raider I played runs well at native 720p with FXAA anti-aliasing, which makes the image sharper than in the Xbox version. There are plenty of jagged edges in the game, but that was the norm for those years. Among other things, the Xbox stands out with its darker color palette, which was common in this generation. The performance is good. The FPS is around 30, but there are drops, not hindering the gameplay. Although the Xbox version works the same, more stable. GTA 5 also runs at 720p, but the FPS drops to as low as 20 during driving and shootouts. On the Xbox, the FPS is more stable, but according to Digital Foundry, the PS3 version is preferable in terms of visuals, and the difference in smoothness is not so critical. Among other differences, it can be noted that on the Xbox, they tried to improve the palm trees, but in my opinion, this only added flickering. More importantly, the PlayStation 3 version is 2 GB larger, due to sharper textures and 5.1 sound, although probably part of the difference is because the game on the Xbox had to fit on 2 DVD discs. Minor differences also include a slight variation in the clarity of reflections. The Last of Us consistently delivers less than 30 frames, but the game can be comfortably completed. Almost all cutscenes here are pre-recorded, and surprisingly, the game still looks decent, especially on a TV from a couple of meters away. Life is Strange works reasonably well. Well, the image is quite clear, with a resolution of 720p, but unfortunately, there are frequent screen tearing issues and the frame rate constantly drops. However, this does not hinder the gameplay due to the interactive movie genre, although a couple of times, Max's facial animations were missing towards the end of the game. Metro also works fine. On the PlayStation, however, the resolution is 640p, and although it's higher on the Xbox, FX and anti-aliasing negate the difference in image quality. And although there are frame drops on the PS3, the Xbox version performs worse. Overall, if you are not familiar with any of these games, you will definitely enjoy playing them on the PS3. But undoubtedly playing on modern platforms will be more enjoyable. Life is Strange is likely the only one of these games you play on PC or PS3 due to translation availability. The PlayStation 3 versions of the games also have advantages, and the Xbox version is not always the best, as commonly believed. Special thanks to Axie for the footage. On his channel there are as many as 4 videos about the PlayStation 3 with detailed game performance tests. So if you're interested, follow the link in the description. Now let's take a look at the other console features that also significantly impact the user experience. All PlayStation 3 models, except for the first 20 gig revision, had Wi-Fi, while Xbox only got it in 2010 with the Slim revision. Additionally, the PS3 had Bluetooth for controller connectivity, whereas Xbox used its own 2.4 GHz protocol, which theoretically could offer lower latency. But in practice, there was no difference. However, there was a difference when it came to replacing the hard drive. On the PS3, you could install any 2.5-inch SATA drive with a capacity of up to 1.5 terabytes. The Xbox 360 also used SATA drives, but they were connected through proprietary cases. Later, the hard drive became internal, but replacing it without the hassle of disk firmware and without the risk of a ban was not possible. There was a difference in the drives. The PS3 used Blu-ray, while the Xbox used DVD. Games on the PS3 fit on 1 disc, whereas on the Xbox later, games could be released on as many as 3 discs. However, the reading speed of Blu-ray was lower, so games on the Sony console had to be installed on the HDD. Here, everyone decides for themselves what is more important to them, speed or capacity and versatility. And what is most surprising now is the free online mode on the PlayStation, whereas for online gaming on Xbox, an Xbox Live Gold subscription costing $60 a year was required. Among the less obvious advantages of the PS3 are HDMI 1.3 with better color reproduction, support for 7.1 sound, and buck interface rendering in 1080p. For the Xbox, it's 720p with upscaling, which is quite important in our time. And if you're already considering which PS3 to buy, let's look at the differences between the revisions. I have the first Slim revision, it's already 16 years old, and the GPU here is still 65 nanometers. In later versions, they switched to 40 nanometers, reducing the thermal package and power consumption. There is no global difference between the Slim and Super Slim, except that the early Slim models might be slightly hotter and louder. There won't be any problems purchasing either of them, unlike buying the third DualShock, which I encountered due to the large number of counterfeits, causing me to search for a gamepad for a long time and learn all the intricacies. First of all, pay attention to the buttons on the right. They should be glossy, the inscriptions on the front should be even and neat, and the fonts should not differ, just like the DualShock and 6-axis labels. And they should not accidentally shift to the side. Also check the size of the lights. In the original, they are small. On the back, you should immediately pay attention to the sticker. It should be applied evenly. Under the barcode, there should be a silvered material. The battery capacity is 300 or 500 milliamp hours. There should also be a reset button here through which you should not see the circuit board. And most importantly, although no one really mentions this, is the Sony logo. There should be no distortions or wide gaps. This is the most obvious sign of a counterfeit. Now a bit about the less obvious things. Pay attention to the thumbsticks. They have a distinctive texture, they should not be flat and should press quietly. The gamepad itself should be slightly matte and slightly weighted to the left side, due to the size of the motors. Personally, I recommend everyone to get an original gamepad, at least to experience the authentic gameplay. But playing will be much more enjoyable with new gamepads. However, if you connect them directly to the console, the PS button won't work and you won't be able to close the game. Also, you won't have vibration. But to fix this, you can buy the Magic S Pro 2 dongle. Plug it into the console, select your device by holding the button, then press once to search for the gamepad, and on the gamepad, press the buttons to search for the device. A couple of seconds, and the gamepad will vibrate, letting you know that everything is connected. And as you can see, the dongle itself will be useful not only for console owners. I would recommend buying this thing, but at least because the third DualShock, although a decent gamepad, doesn't fit as well in the hands as the newer ones due to its smaller size. And the materials in the new controllers are better too. And now about something that everyone is concerned about, but just a little bit, because this video isn't really about that. As you know, all PlayStations can be software modded, and the exploit gives you complete freedom in managing the console. And despite the common belief that PlayStation has its own standard app store, that's not the case. Well, more precisely, it exists, but it's rubbish. The problem is that games constantly try to update something, many of them lack localization, and some are completely missing. Therefore, it's best to download them from the internet and transfer them via FTP over an Ethernet cable from your computer using FileZilla. This will be faster. I won't explain where to get the games in the video, as I don't want to risk getting strikes, but I will share information on where to download them in my Telegram channel. The Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 reflected the diversity of their time, similar to smartphones of that period, which had unique characteristics. And there is no clear winner in this rivalry. Each console had its own advantages and disadvantages. Back then, choosing a console could indeed be a difficult dilemma. The popularity of the Xbox in the CIS was ensured by the ease of drive hacking, low cost, and wide availability. The PS3 was less popular, but over time it also became quite widespread. And in answering the question of who needs this console, it can be confidently said that everyone does. For everyone who, having built a powerful PC and owning the current generation of consoles, still doesn't play, just try buying yourself a PlayStation 3. Forget about relevance and your demands for games. It is also perfect for those who want to experience the vibe of that era. Whether they are new users, who didn't have a console back then, or those who want to return to their past. But if you already have these consoles, then share how you bought them and how many years you've been playing on them. In general, share your experience, I would be interested to read about it. Finally, say goodbye and mention your name.